Sano Manjiro, better known as just Mikey, is probably one of the most interesting and complex characters from the Tokyo Revengers story. In this video, we will dive into his extremely interesting life, which will involve going over parts of his personality, past, and the uncontrollable rage that he possesses once he falls into his so-called dark impulses. But just before we get into Mikey, if you guys are new around here and want to keep up to date with the latest Tokyo Revengers content, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also be sure to leave a like on the video, as it really helps out with the algorithm and pushes my stuff to a bunch of new amazing people. But anyway, enough of that, let's get back to the video. So, Mikey's character is quite a confusing one. There are so many, I guess, different outcomes and versions of Mikey that we see throughout the series, but here I'm mainly going to stick to the younger Mikey that we meet at the beginning of the story and stick with his development through the past up until the current arc. At the start of the series, Mikey is 14 years old and seems to be an extremely relaxed, carefree, chilled out person who would just walk around like he doesn't have a care in the world. Though throughout even the first few chapters, we learn that yes, he can be extremely calm, but as soon as anyone he cares for is put in any kind of danger, like initially with Payan or Pachin, an absolute beast awakes, whose strength is at least double of anyone else's we meet throughout the series. This is because he believes himself to be the foundation of Toman, and off him, he wants to build this new world of delinquents. So he has to be someone strong enough to strike fear into the soul of any opponent and not ever crumble. Otherwise, Toman would also crumble along with him. In front of other Toman members, mainly the fodder and not necessarily the vice captains or captains, Mikey acts different and his aura changes to that of what the majority of everyone else sees around him. He becomes extremely commanding and always respectfully addresses the gang in an imposing manner, in which all of the members respect him but still in some way have a degree of fear towards him and his immense power. Mikey is always concerned with Toman and wants to, with every good fibre in his body, create a new world of delinquents, similar to the era in which his brother's gang roamed the streets and dealt with all of their issues independently from the cops and similar entities. Though despite this want to build an amazing future, at heart, Mikey is still young and can be easily corrupted through the use of manipulation and playing on his wants to build this new era at almost any means possible, which sadly, a majority of the time results in the unfavourable outcomes for the original Toman members. Also, sadly, because of a flurry of events that happen throughout the story, Mikey is forced to mature to a mental age much older than that of his actual age. And although I personally think Mikey does somewhat mature, he doesn't entirely, and this is simply because he is young. His brain hasn't fully matured, and he isn't 26 years old like Takemichi in a 14-year-old's body. He can't fully understand the impact that each death takes on his mind, and he isn't old enough to be able to deal with the grief in a normal way. So he holds it in until there is a catalyst that results in the blowout of a lifetime, literally. This is the uncontrollable rage that Mikey possesses, and it's not necessarily this rage that contributes to his constant fall into his dark urges, but his utter lack of guidance, not having any kind of father figure that he could look up to guide him in a proper way. He had to be looked after by his older brother, who happened to be involved in gangs, which no matter how you look at it isn't a great example, and because of how he molded himself after his brother, it made him take the role that everyone would lean on him for help as the leader. This in turn, with the grief of constantly losing a loved one, is what triggers the start of his uncontrollable rage, as he will constantly bash away at people until it feels as though he has filled the void in his heart, when in all reality all he has done is make it worse. But this is where people like Draken, Takemichi, and the other Toman guys come in to solve this issue before it erupts into something completely out of their control. Takemichi himself has even been told by Mikey to snap him back onto the right path if he seems to go astray. Not in those words exactly, but in a similar way to how his brother would have guided him down the correct path as a delinquent. This is their respective roles throughout the series, and at moments when Mikey is at his worst, Takemichi is always there to try and save or fix the situation. Though, on timelines where Mikey indulges into his dark impulses, it shows that he grows into someone with an extremely sad and conflicted mind, with an almost split personality, as he goes from his either extremely charismatic self to, in one instance, embracing the violence that he possesses. We find that he would commit multiple murders and heinous crimes, or would command his members of whatever faction or group he'd been in charge of to commit these atrocities for him, while still remaining extremely callous while he planned out all of it. Sometimes, completely randomly, he would even revert to hunting and shooting some of his closest friends. Then at the same time, he's trying to distance himself from these friends, probably realizing that the little control he has over his dark urges is dangerous, even going as far as to try and kill himself after he thinks that it would be the only way to put an end to his long sad story and end the chaos that he had created when he decided to try and build a new era of delinquents, similar to his brother. The main catalyst for these dark impulses that Mikey is constantly subject to is the loss of a loved one or the suffering that they may go through. These deaths, like the original death of Shinichiro Sano, Mikey's older brother, affects him on a completely different level than most people. He claims that their souls guide him after their death, but in all honesty, I think this is just a coping mechanism that Mikey himself makes up, as he's extremely young when the series starts at 14 years old and 12 when he first suffers a massive loss. So it would make sense for this to be a way that Mikey manages with the increasing body count that is constantly building throughout the series. And like, if you've watched my other video on all the deaths throughout Tokyo Revengers, you'd realize that the majority of all the permanent deaths throughout the series are mainly of Sano Manjiro's family, taking away his older brother, half-sister, and adopted brother along with one of his closest friends in Keisuke Baji. Each of these deaths though slowly sap away at his emotional state and deteriorate his overall image. Though he does his best to try and act composed or normal, the effect of this ever-involving darkness is more than Mikey can handle himself. This factor of a constantly involving darkness that grows with each death throughout the series is what renders Mikey completely vulnerable to people like Kisaki or Sanzu, who may be trying to subsequently control him, so that they can gain whatever they personally want through the power and aura of Mikey's name and status in the delinquent world. This is obvious as in each timeline so far that we have been given, Mikey has lost those closest to him in replacement for people who want to use and manipulate him, hoping that these people can fill the void in his cold, dark heart. But anyway, I hope you've all enjoyed my video on Sano Manjiro and possibly even learnt a little bit about him and how his dark impulses and his uncontrollable rage end up always seeming to envelop him. If you are new around here and want to keep up to date with more content like this, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and also be sure to leave a like on the video, as it really helps out with the algorithm and pushes my stuff to a bunch of new amazing people. Also, be sure to drop a comment down below with what you all thought about the video and if you have anything to add on his dark impulses that I may have possibly missed. But anyway, for now it's been your professional degenerate, Diavolo, and I'll see you all in a bit. Bye.